It's really great to see so many people I don't know that I've heard about over the years. I'm Jim's older sister, and I never expected to have to do this. I'm going to go back to when Jim was born. Probably the only one here that knows anything about this, so I'm going to tell you. I knew it was a special day because my mother's mother, Grandma Freoff, treated me and Nancy, my sister here, Nancy Jane, to ice cream cones. And we were eating them on the sidewalk in front of our house. And this house was in Pittsburgh at 1042 Belair Avenue. And it was a house my father had built for our mother before they were married. During the Depression, we didn't get ice cream very often, as kids do today. Even later on, when we went to Moore Park for the 4th of July, and those of you from Brookline will know Moore Park, the treat of an Isley ice cream cone for a nickel was a once-a-year celebration. So I knew something important was going on. My cone was chocolate. I don't know. You know yours, Nancy? I don't know what Nancy's was. She was only 2, and she probably doesn't know either. I just know it was a real big celebration. I was 5. A baby's delivery at home was fairly routine during the Depression, and Dr. Henry was our family doctor. And he was busy inside while we ate our ice cream cones. I thought for years that Jim's childhood fondness for chocolate had something to do with my cone. Fast forward to the next vivid memory, and I've told this to Penny and Tish. Jimmy must have walked early, for it's a walking memory. It was in the living room of that house on Belair. Or rather, it was a marching, strutting memory. Dad always made a big celebration of the 4th of July. He had been a soldier in World War I, and that was important to him. On that day, he lined the sidewalk with little flags on each side, up to the door. Jim would have been too little on his first 4th of July, for he was born November 22nd. But Dad must have given him one of these little flags to wave. We all sat around the living room, singing a World War I song, when I can't sing well because of my allergies, but it was soldier boy, where are you going? Waving so proudly the red, white, and blue. And little Jimmy proudly strutted all around the living room, waving his little flag without any clothing on.
Which flag?
He loved the attention, and our parents loved the fact that they finally had a son after the birth of 2 older sisters. Nancy mentioned that little Jimmy continued to enjoy walking around the house without his clothes as he got a little older. I told Jim about this recently, and Tish says he's delighted in repeating it over and over to anybody who would listen. He didn't know it. During the Depression, my dad lost the mortgage on this wonderful home, and after a short stint living with my paternal grandparents, we moved to a rental house on Berkeley Avenue. These pre-TV days were magical in which to be a child. We had a big apple tree in the backyard, which was the gathering place for all the neighborhood kids, mostly boys. All summer long, they were climbing, swinging, and playing in the tree branches. In the fall, they had rotten apple fights using garbage can lids, while the girls cheered them on. All the kids spent their summer days playing outside from early morning till the street lights came on at night with a few meal breaks. Jimmy, Don Sayanga, and Phil Cavada roamed the area from Berkeley, Berlin, and Beaufort to the big woods with absolute freedom. And those of you from Brookline know that the big woods had many tales there too. In recent years, when we got together by way of the internet, Jim was the elected webmaster for a virtual reunion for the grown-up kids from these days. It was titled The Shortcut, named after a paved step area we used to cut across some of the steep Pittsburgh streets. Not many of the original group is left now. Don Sayanga, Bill Selvig, Art Rosfeld, my sister and I. We have lost many of the original 12 in the past few years, and without end. My sister Nancy Jane recalls what a good-natured little boy Jimmy was. As sisters, we liked to dress him up in doll clothes and put makeup on his face, and then push him around in a baby carriage. He just smiled. Always was pleasant. Our daughter Kim noticed that in all the baby pictures we have shared with him, he seems to be really thinking about something. Now, many of the little babies today look like the light bulb hasn't gone on in their brain yet. But little thoughts seem to be assembling in Jimmy's head at an early age, proof of the great intellect to come. Well, our lives changed drastically in 1944. My mother had had several surgeries for cancer over the years. In February, she went to the hospital for the last time. My dad told me at that time she was not coming home, and I had to take over as mother. I didn't quite know how to do that. Mother's last words as she left our home for the ambulance ride to the hospital were to her lifetime best friend, Mary Caldwell Levine. I have a vivid picture of her saying, as she was lifted onto the stretcher, that she wished she had 10 more years just to see Jimmy graduate from high school. It has only been recently I figured out that her fear that he might not graduate may have been based on the fact that neither she or my dad went to school beyond the age of 14. It did not matter at the time that she wasn't concerned about Nancy Jane and me. I suppose she knew girls could take care of themselves. Nancy related the story to me that one day while she was going to school, Jim ran back to kiss his mother again before he left our property. We had a big property, and a matter of fact, we had an empty lot on which one of the visitors here, Jim Lynn, later lived on, so he was a later day member of this gang. Jim never saw his mother again, and when he said he did not remember her for many years, it must date back to this February. She died that June. Jim went on with his friends. That winter, I had a great scare during the snow season. Our street had been paved with cobblestones by the WPA during the 1930s. The reason for this was a very steep hill in front of our house, and my nephews have seen that hill. It went straight down. It was dangerous and intimidating in the summer, but in the winter people stopped using it, and it became an icy ski jump and sled course. Went straight down to the big woods at the bottom of the hill. Jim came stumbling in one day and told me he had taken his sled down the hill and run into the telly pole at the foot of the hill. He was stunned and may have been briefly knocked out. We were very fortunate he was not permanently hurt by this escapade. It was an experience that neither of us ever forgot. Being a substitute mother was not as easy as it may have sounded. Our lives seemed to get worse. I'm telling the good end of it. We were evicted from our house for non-payment of rent and had the horror of having all our furniture and belongings placed on the side yard by the sheriff. We ended up for a while at our maternal grandparents' home, all sleeping in one room. Jim and Dad in a single bed, and my sister and I in a double bed. Dad was able to buy Jim a second-hand bike at this time, though, so he was able to revisit his old friends in the other neighborhood to play. Jim even taught me to ride on this bike. I have thought today that we would have ended up, today if this happened, we would have ended up with wards of the court. But in that day, the answer to our problem came from Mother's many friends, the neighbors from our bridge club in our former home. Jimmy and Don Sayanga had bonded as lifetime friends, and G.A. and Helen Sayanga took him in as part of their family when he was in Pittsburgh. Nancy Jane was invited to go to Bill and May Frazier's home, and finally I to Mary and Harry Devine's. Dad was not able to financially support us, and I had the heartbreaking decision to have to sign Jim up for the Milton Hershey School. It was a cold, snowy day. I took Jim up there for the admittance procedure where he was given an IQ test. Try as he would, the rascal could not fail the test and ended up with a score of 105, which was a far cry from his near-genius intelligence. Zayankas took over as Jim's home base in Pittsburgh then. Don and G.A. took over taking him and getting him for his summer vacation.